Your nipple's not out, right? All right, that's a good place to start. You got any classic Houston songs you want to go off on again? People enjoyed that intro. You was lit.
I better get these Beyonce tickets. That's the intro.
Mm-hmm.
Low key, I got a drum in front of me. I will sing it to the heavens. Welcome back to episode 5 of Remembering Me, a soul healing podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Candace Love.
I'm your boy, Docs, a.k.a. Brick City Buddha.
And today we have another exciting episode for you all. And thank you so much for how you've shown up for us in, episode 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like, the feedback has been really beautiful. And we aren't the type of people that focus on like the analytics of anything. However, we have noticed the natural growth of this podcast. So we appreciate when you guys screen record. We appreciate when you share on Instagram, when you invite other people that you know into the podcast world, of our podcast world, and just really share what we're doing.
Yeah, I saw a few different posts of people, couples, same sex, hetero couples that not only shared the clips that resonated with them the most from the podcast, but they also had like many screenshots of the text thread between them and their partner about what they picked up, what they were resonating with. So again, this podcast isn't just about y'all just listening to us for an hour or so. This is to create conversations that will extend beyond whatever we talk about here, and you can take it into your home. You can take it into your bedroom with your kids, whatever it is. We want this to be a global community, a global conversation. So again, immense gratitude for how y'all been doing with that.
Right. And the reason he mentioned, the same sex couples, because we also want to highlight that this is not just a podcast that is for men and women in relationships. That is not the scope of what we intend, or the only people we intend to attract to our podcast. We want everyone to know that we are talking to everyone, any skin color, any gender, however you desire to be acknowledged. We're speaking to everyone, and we want everyone to be able to put themselves in the conversation, even if we don't specifically mention you, because we are speaking about our personal experience. But we want you to feel comfortable enough to put yourself in the situation and see yourself in these conversations.
And I think that's part of why in the first episode, when I asked, are we cursing? And he was like, nah, let's not curse. I think part of the reason why we were guided to do that is because these are conversations you could listen to with your kids. Instead of just throwing on the trap music, we're not cursing up a storm. We keeping everything pretty graceful, even in some of the adult topics that we talk about. So these are conversations that the whole families can have, and especially kids in this day and age, they don't get much balance as far as hearing the type of things that we talk about. So if you got a 10-year-old son, you got a 13-year-old daughter, it may be hard to spark some of these conversations as a parent, because sometimes our kids tune us out. So this is a great buffer to be able to spark these conversations, not just with your mate, but also with your entire family at large.
Absolutely. All right. So I think we can go ahead and, do we have any like current topics?
Current events?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So we can go ahead and get into.
Oh, matter of fact, yeah, we can talk a little bit about, because I feel like it does correlate to this conversation, about Kyrie Irving. And how Kyrie Irving kind of handled the past 2 to 3 years of him honoring what his intuition told him to do for himself. Not everybody is going to be sports fans, so if you're not familiar with Kyrie Irving, he's a superstar basketball player. He became very famous a couple years ago because he decided to sit out of his NBA season because he didn't want to get the shot, and not only just for himself. He was kind of representing people having the autonomy over their own body, and the people who don't make millions of dollars being forced to get the shot to be able to continue to work. He kind of took that stand. He got a lot of backlash for that. He got misunderstood by a lot of people. And then he also had the moment this year where he put up a post about, black people being the true Hebrews, the true Israelites. He got a lot of backlash for that, and he actually got suspended just for him having an opinion. So recently, in the past couple of days, he actually told the team, like, I want to be traded, and was traded the next day. And he's getting even more backlash. The only reason I bring him up is because this topic will be about how balanced love, self-love, love with your mate, community, how balanced love can balance your checkbook. I know Tiana Taylor and Kanye West had the song last year, a couple of years ago, Love is the New Money. It really is, and that's the topic we want to get into. But as far as current events, it's been beautiful to watch how the conversation has shifted from when Kyrie Irving first made these stances. Like in the 60s and 70s, we would have looked at him like Muhammad Ali. Now it's very dangerous to have your own opinion and stand on your truth. We've seen what Kanye has gone through, seen what Kyrie has gone through. Wherever you stand on it, these men have still stood on what they believe, which is a rare skill set in this day and age. And people felt like it was going to work out bad for him. And he's in a completely new situation, new money, free from all of that. So I think that's a great segue into the conversation we want to have today about how love can literally impact your financial bottom line.
Okay, perfect. So go ahead and start us into that conversation, because I know that this is something that you enjoy speaking about, and so many people have the ability to hear you and see themselves in this conversation, and it's so healing for especially men to be able to hear another man speak about these types of situations. So how would you want to start that?
So I guess we could start with, and we talked about it in the first episode, we wanted to eventually address how this happened. So we kind of joke all the time that we built this house with a flyer. And what I mean by that, what we meant by that is that when I decided to move out here, when I was led, when Spirit told me it was time to come cohabitate with my wife, we was doing a technical long distance thing, because we never really felt like we was in a long distance relationship, because energy doesn't recognize space and time. When you go into subtle enough layers of it, it didn't matter that she was 1,400 miles away. We was having intimacy just like y'all see in the flesh in our bedroom. We was having that same type of intimacy without physical bodies 1,400 miles away. So we never felt like we was in a long distance relationship. But when I was compelled to say, you know what, I'm about to move to Houston, like, let's just really do this full throttle, we needed a space. She already had her own space, but it wasn't big enough for both of us. I was coming from my apartment in New Jersey, and we knew we needed to create something. Initially, she was further along in her financial process, military for how many years?
10
years military, 7 years police, right? School teacher for 3 to 4 years, right? So she had a certain level of a nest egg. Again, like I mentioned in the interview we did last night, I was just reclaiming my financial fortitude. I had went through a lot over the 10 years of my life before I met Candace. Being on disability, going blind, being fired from 5 straight jobs. Again, just for being a sharp man, a sharp black man, which is a lot of times can be a threat in corporate America. I kept getting bodied job to job for doing my job well and not being appreciated by the non-melanated higher ups. I say it like that. So I was, to a certain degree, technically on the surface, it looked like I was playing catch up. But I was at a point where I was able to take care of my family, was able to take care of myself, take care of my son. But I didn't have money to put in the pot to build a house initially. So a lot of that financial impetus came from my wife, and she never once questioned me for, you don't got it to put in. She was like, we building a house, I got it, let's start the process. And even when she first met me, we never had conversations on what your 401k look like, how much is in your bank account. Still to
What's your 5-year plan?
What's your 5-year plan? Still to this day, I have no idea what's in her account. I know she does well for herself. She has no idea what's in my account. She knows I take care of myself. Our business together is what we focus on, and we'll get to that in a second. But what society has told us, rest his soul to Kevin Samuels of the world and all these different things, that a man has to have certain things in pocket before he can be valuable enough to even be in a relationship. You never brought that to me. All you saw was the value within my spirit and the other ways I was able to provide for you. Flying me out, things of this nature. And also me doing things for you, taking you to AC, the Ocean Resort, the beautiful time we had on your birthday. So we've done things for each other, but it hasn't been a matter of, as the man, I'm paying the bills, I'm paying for the house. And initially she took the onus, but it's beautiful because being that I didn't feel a way about it as a man, like, oh man, my wife is paying for my house. I never felt that because I'm very comfortable with how I provide and my value as a being, besides what society tells me I should be able to do. Once we put up the flyer for our first retreat, and mind you, people have been telling us for a year, y'all should do a retreat. It was kind of in the back of our heads, and we do everything at God's speed. We don't rush it. So we were just having a regular conversation one day, and it was like, you know what? Let's just start looking at some Airbnbs. Let's dig into this a little bit. Within a day of that conversation being sparked, we was like, you know what? We can put this out. The next week we put it out, and one flyer, you know, this day and age, you got to have all type of visuals and content, and it got to be fancy. We put up one flyer. Within a week and a half, we had almost 2 completely sold out retreats out of 3 in a week and a half. So that just goes to show you that when you really are patient, when you practice stillness enough and you follow the flow of God, you don't necessarily have to force yourself to the finances. And once that flyer went out, that money that we received from the retreat, I was able to put in my half of what she had already put in from her savings. And we was able to build this beautiful space together. Her starting the process, me catching up based off us putting out one flyer that built this house.
Absolutely. What do you think about, like, in that process of the building before we were able to put in the retreat? What do you think the past versions of yourself felt about that process?
Oh no, they definitely was present. They definitely came up, and those pieces of me felt the way. I think we maybe even had conversations, or I at least asked you, like, are you sure you comfortable with that? We did have a few conversations about that. I wasn't oblivious to it. I knew I needed to at least bring it up. And you was fine the whole time. Like, you was excited. You was already, planning. She's a great designer at this point now. That was her first house that she ever designed. If y'all need some help, holla at the girl. But she immediately got this excited about the creative aspect and literally playing house with making our home. I wasn't here for any of those decisions. I was in Jersey. Of course, I trusted her intuition and what she was putting together, and we have a cathedral now. But there was a lot of those previous versions of myself and what society told me I should be able to contribute as a man that did come up. But that's the beauty of the healing work I've done and pulling myself away from those programs, where I was still able to recognize there's so much I've been able to pour into you that has nothing to do with money, vice versa as well. And all the work, I remember you telling me this too, all the work I put into my community when you did the ceremony and initiated me into Babahood, me being a father to my community spiritually for so long, to a certain degree, it was almost like me being rewarded. The times where I didn't necessarily ask for or even receive money back for the love that I would pump into different people, this was an opportunity for God to say, I got you for right now. I recognize all that love you put out. I want to give it back to you. And I was still able to catch up within a couple months and not even realizing, like, we did low-key build this house together financially because I was able to pour in what I made from the retreat as well.
Mm-hmm. And the other aspect of, the part that's so beautiful is our house is paid for cash. And so another part that was exciting to me is you've had to work your entire life, and not just work, but how many jobs did you get fired from back to back?
Yeah, 5 straight jobs.
Right. So the toll that takes on a person's confidence, on their ability to keep going in general, and knowing that that's something that you had to experience and, just try to figure it out. And then not only that, you were living in New Jersey. So what it takes for y'all to just sustain life as far as payment is crazy.
Right.
Spending like $2,800 on an apartment and, all of those things. So our house is paid for. We were able to pay for everything cash, and our home is very beautiful. We built it from the ground up. So the other part of the excitement was knowing that when you got home, there are no bills other than the basics of, gas and things like that. There's no mortgage. So the freedom in being able to rest, the freedom in being able to really have a deeper relationship with God, because for the most part, when you have the relationship with God, it is an escape to not have to feel the pressure that is in reality. So now that reality has no pressure to a certain degree. Now the relationship with God kind of
Can
changes.
really blossom, yeah.
Right. It really blossoms because there's more gratitude there as opposed to a need to escape, because both places feel like peace. Both places feel like harmony. Both places feel like ease. And so the purpose of this conversation is to acknowledge that when you are forcing yourself into submission to attempt to pay for something or attempt to make money or attempt to get to the bag, you really lose how God is guiding you in the process and showing you that's going to come. But for right now, I just need you to trust the process. And that's what you did. And that's what we did, especially when it came to like the retreat. We didn't plan a retreat. We didn't plan to build our house. We didn't say, okay, once we together for this amount of time, we're going to build a house. Or
we wasn't even talking about moving in together.
No, we weren't talking about moving in at all. I don't know that it was ever a conversation. But once the conversation happened, that is when it started to blossom. And the same with the retreat. Once the conversation happened, that's when it started to blossom. But these are clear indications that when there's no forcefulness in planning, you get to hear when God is telling you to move. And when you listen and move right then and there, all of the realities that are supposed to be expanded start to expand. All the worlds that are supposed to be created start to be created. And effortlessly, everything that we do, everything that we touch is effortless. Our retreat, we didn't, like you said, we didn't have pictures for people to look at. We didn't have videos for people to look at. We didn't have promo for people to look at. The only thing that we had was a flyer. And it was basically like, y'all trust what we teach on a daily basis on our Instagram accounts.
Right.
And they trusted that to move forward. And so that also shows that God is like, I don't need you to do all of this X, Y, and Z, have the business marketing and pay for ads and all of those things. All I need you to do is listen, and everything else is going to unfold exactly as it should.
Right. And a lot of people may be hearing this conversation and it's like, all right, well, I ain't got time to sit still. You can say that until God will sit you down regardless of how you feel about sitting still. And that's what happened with me way before this juncture of my life. I remember being fired from the 4th of the 5 jobs. By the time I got to the 5th firing, my eye had exploded at that point, and I was just at a certain level of peace where I didn't do what I did at the 4th. I went off. And I got fired from that 4th job. I was working 7 days a week for 2 years. I had elevated in the company very quick. I wasn't good at math when I was young. I'm in here doing electrical engineering. I was so hungry to try to establish financial stability for myself. I was trying to do everything, going back to school, getting new things. So when I got fired from that job, when they had just told me they was going to send me back to school because of how well I was doing, somebody lied on me about something and I got bodied for it. I went off. Like, it was like a whole scene in a movie, to the point my cousin, I had got him a job up there. He's like, yo, they called the cops, bro. You got to get out of here. And I remember the job was an hour away from my crib. And I remember being in the car and I'm bawling, I'm crying. One of the questions we asked our attendees at the retreat, have you ever cursed out God? This was the moment where I had done it within my head at certain times, but was kind of scared to say it out loud. At this point, I'm on a highway, I'm bawling, I'm literally punching the roof of my car like hard, to the point I kind of sprained my wrist. And I'm cursing God out like, yo, what do I have to do to establish myself financially? I have worked so hard my whole life. Why is this not working? And it was because I hadn't taken the time to be still. I knew I was doing too much and going too hard, and Team No Sleep became popular that time. My body was telling me this is not working, but I wasn't listening. So God had to sit me down. And when I finally accepted that space, again, I had no choice. I was blind and kidney conked out, and I'm on disability like I've mentioned before. Once I finally accepted that, that's when things started to turn around for me. That's when things started to blossom. And if I didn't accept that in that moment, this phase of my life is not possible. So we could say till we blue in the face, I ain't got the time, I ain't got the time. By doing that, you're running out of time anyway, and you're still going to be pushed to a point where God has to force you to sit down, and that's going to be extremely painful when it doesn't have to be. If you take that guidance from God before the SHIT has to hit the fan, if you will.
Yeah, and everything happens in stages. And so society, specifically Instagram, has this, oh, I'm in my bag stage, or booked and busy. And the reality is the soul is not asking to constantly be on the go. The soul thrives in stillness, in silence, and in nature. And so when you're giving it and forcing it into submission with something completely opposite than that, you're going to be able to force yourself into submission and go. But at some point, the soul is going to need rest. And then everything that you are putting your energy into, it's going to reflect depletion. It's going to reflect the opposite of evolving, the opposite of growing, the opposite of healing. And that's when things stop working. And most people think, oh, I need to put out more ads. I need to create a different business strategy. I need to hire more teachers and guides to help me figure out my business. And you pay thousands of dollars for courses, and it's your spirit telling you, I ain't ask you for no $2,000 course. I asked you to go sit down for a good enough time, and I will tell you what you're supposed to do.
I'll give you your course.
I will tell you what the next steps are. I will lay out the path. The only thing that you have to do is listen. But people don't have the capacity to sit with themselves long enough to actually hear. And so every force that is operating within the person has to force them to sit down. And it doesn't feel good. And the truth of the matter is, because everything happens in cycles and phases and in stages, there is a time of not doing. There is a time of, I remember I was telling you, I think last year, I was like, this is weird. I have no desire for anything. Like, I don't have any desire. I don't have any goals.
Because you was about to work on a vision board, right?
I was about to work on the vision board, and not even just a vision board, because I've never really worked with vision boards, but I would write out my goals and I would have them posted on my wall, in my bathroom wall. And so as I walked in, my ticket to get in the bathroom, because that's the place that I frequent the most, my ticket to get in the bathroom was to read all of my goals. And this is just how you reprogram the subconscious mind, repetition. And so my ticket to get out of the bathroom was to read through all of my goals. Sometimes people have goals and they just forget what they are. And so that was one of the things each year, because I am a manifester. Whatever I put my mind to, it ain't nothing. I'm going to kill it and I'm going to do it. However, I also recognize things are happening when they are supposed to happen. And it's not bad to write down my goals, but it's also not 100% necessary, because what is for me is going to be for me. So the time came where I'm like, I'm about to put on some Lil Wayne music, right? I'm about to write my goals. I'm about to get crunk. I'm about to feel all this energy. And I'm like, wait, I don't want anything. I don't want for money. Not saying I didn't need money, but I didn't have the desire to do anything to make money. I didn't have any goals. If you asked me what I wanted, I didn't want to travel. And it's not that I had a lack of desire for life. I just didn't have the energy for want. I was fine where I was. And there was so much pressure taken off of me, because it's like, I don't want nothing.
Right.
Most people feel so much pressure because they want so many things. They desire so many things. It's always, what's next? What else can I do? What else can I achieve? How much more money can I make?
Right.
What other goals how else can I be successful? And it was like, that feels like such a rat race that I do not want to be a part of.
Right.
And then also what came with giving myself permission to not want anything was the mind saying, are you sure there's nothing you can want?
It kind of scared you and you got a little confused.
Yeah, it scared me. I'm like, I don't understand this space. It's a weird space to not desire anything, not even to travel. So what I had to do was listen and just get still and understand, like, there's nothing for me to do. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to be. There's nothing to attempt to get my way to. The only job is to just be right now, just to sit in stillness and sit in quietness. And even in that process of being still, money isn't coming in because I'm not putting out Instagram posts. I'm not trying to gain clients. I'm not doing the things that an entrepreneur needs to do to be a successful entrepreneur. I'm listening to my spirit, which is saying, get still. And also being compassionate with myself for the moments where I'm like, there's fear setting in because money is not present. There's fear setting in because I've kind of abandoned my business. And also having to trust and surrender and submit to the knowing that your time for creativity is going to come again. Your time to be enthralled in the space of creating a whole new life of creation is going to happen, but it's not right now. Right now is stillness, silence, and just sitting with the soul.
And the creativity was actually still happening, though. It just wasn't happening externally.
And at the way that I expected for it to happen.
Exactly. So by taking that time, your intention, your attention was able to start to dive within itself. And we got so much stuff we collect throughout lifetimes, our soul's journey, that when you are constantly on this go mode, you don't get the time to rewire, to repair, to be a mechanic on your heart and on your spirit. And you may feel like just like I felt when I was punching the ceiling in my car, like, yo, why can I not get past this level? I wasn't giving myself time to allow my creativity and my motivation to be directed inward, to allow those cobwebs to be cleared out. And once that space is cleared out, now you have the ability to experience and access higher levels of the external abundance. I always talk to people about the fact that when you want something, like, you know, again, me being a meditation teacher, giving so much of my time to how the mind works, you have, and again, we talked about this before, there are 11 million bits of information being processed by the mind every second, right? We are able to consciously recognize 50 bits. So you got all this data constantly coming to you, whether it's the sensation of my butt on this couch, the periphery of the trees kind of swaying outside our windows. It's all this information coming to you. So there's this big, wide field of data that you can tap into. Whenever you are in the meditative state, your attention, I call it the spotlight of attention, which we're constantly shining from one thing to the next, it's expanded because it's not on a singular point. When you want something, that expanded ability of your awareness, it condenses and it crunches into one bit of those 11 million bits of information. And when you stay there too long, you lose access to the energy that's in the ancillary bits of information around that one point you so focused on. So almost like the wanting, constant wanting, is condensing your ability to access what's beyond the desire. And also you can't see the things that connect to the desire because you're so focused on this one bit of the 11 million bits, second to second, moment to moment, not sleeping, every day trying to grind. So when you put yourself in pockets of wantlessness, outside of just laying on a mat and meditating, your life starts to become meditative. Your awareness during the course of your day starts to expand out. And now those resources that I felt like I couldn't access, those people, places, and things I needed to go to the next level, now that I'm expanded, my energy field now includes those people that may be 15 miles away, 1,400 miles away. I remember when I first started to teach meditation, I didn't have a physical space. I was out here thugging at the park. It got cold in Jersey. We on the side of a mountain. People still coming. I knew this was something I needed to continue. I needed a space. One person told the next person about docs, and before you know it, within a few months, I met Zakia, who I've been rocking with ever since, Zill Creative Studios, that I still do business with in New Jersey while I'm in Houston, and we've created a beautiful tribe together. I didn't have to do a Google search for that. That came to me because I continued to stay in a certain level of wantlessness. And with that, your trust quotient of how God is guiding you goes up. God sees that, and God continues to dole out what you need in a way where you don't have to chase it. It kind of just comes to you, but it comes to you in a way where sometimes you got to kind of walk that plank of patience. That's what I'm gonna call it right now. And if you in those moments where it's like, yo, ain't no money coming in right now, and I don't want nothing, and like you were saying, like I got to be posting, I got to make money, but I just don't feel it. If you weren't able to kind of walk that plank and accept the fact that I may fall off a financial cliff right now, and if that happens, so be it. But this is what my soul is telling me to do, to be still. I'm going to honor what my soul tells me, even if that means I have to financially die right now.
Absolutely.
When you get to that point where you trust walking that plank over and over when those seasons come, then you're always going to find your way back to the season of expansion, of abundance, of more clients, more ideas, and more creativity coming in.
Absolutely. And first I just want to say, like, y'all, my husband is so intelligent and brilliant, and like the type of wisdom that this man has is so sexy. I know y'all probably think it's sexy too, so I'm just gonna say it for y'all. It's different to be able to see that and witness that and feel that in person.
Ditto.
But and one of the things also when it comes to like society, especially if you are a person who is consciously or unconsciously comparing yourself to other people on social media, to be in a space to where you are experiencing wantlessness, to where it's like, I don't have any desire. There's nothing that I want. There's nothing that I have the urge to work towards. Right. Everything, especially on social media, tells you that that is wrong. Right. And you will also have people that say things like, you shouldn't use an alarm clock. If your desire, your ambition doesn't wake you up, then you're doing the wrong thing. And sometimes people have to acknowledge waking up on its own is a task. Having the ability to wake up and still feel a motivation for life is the task. And sometimes your day is successful just because you chose to wake up and get out of the bed. It doesn't always mean that you have to be figuring out, finding ways to be successful, finding ways to be to make money, finding ways to have purpose. And so there's so much freedom in being able to say, I don't desire anything. I don't need anything. I'm perfectly content in where I am. And I trust that whatever is present for me, I don't have to even wait for it to come to me. The fact that I'm honoring my wantlessness, the fact that I'm honoring myself, I'm honoring my stillness, I'm honoring my silence. The trust is that that type of spiritual integrity is moving so much energy that you're not even conscious of. So now, like you said, with Zeal Creative Studios, now opportunity starts to find you. Right. Now people who are in need to use your services start to find you, and you don't even have to move a muscle. Right. And so I think the biggest aspect is spiritual integrity, which is what many people lack. And it's not too high on people's priority list to really prioritize spiritual integrity. Because if your soul has told you to sit down and you still out making Instagram posts, and you still trying to get clients, and you still trying to build a 6-figure business, and your soul is like, I didn't say do that. I told you to sit down. I asked you to get quiet. I told you to get serious with your spiritual practices. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna finish this first so I have enough money that's gonna make sure when I do take a break, I'll be good. And your soul is like, I actually asked you to struggle, and you're refusing to do that. So you're not gonna get none of the gems, none of the lessons that are in the midst of your struggling or your uncomfortability or in you being able to surrender. Even while you say, well, I need to stack up first and then I'll take a break. It's like, okay, well, that's not real surrender. You forced yourself to find a way to feel comfortable. And then it's like, okay, now I'll meditate for a week. And the soul is like, no, I needed you to feel the anxiousness that comes with surrender and work through that.
And it's almost like fear disguised as motivation. Because you're trying to build that nest egg just in case, and your mind is going to what could possibly happen in the future. The future ain't, you've never met tomorrow. You've never met yesterday. All you have power in is in here and now. And so much of our decision making, even at a time where I moved out here, I was working in the North school system. on top of what I was doing freelance. So I always kind of had that buffer for the past 3 years of knowing I'm going to get a certain amount of money from the work I do in the Newark school system. I don't have that in Houston. I knew I wasn't going to have that here. So there was a certain period of time, and I'm still kind of in that flux of readjusting and not having as much in my nest egg as I was used to having. But you get in that space where the fearful thoughts of what could happen come up for me. They come up for us. We don't engage them. There's a difference between thought and thinking. Thinking is the engaging of thought, the latching onto, the purchasing, the downloading of the thought. And then it turns into this great big world in your head that before you know it, you just glazed out thinking about, all right, well, if this event don't go right, then what am I going to do? I got blindfolded speed meeting coming up this Friday. We don't have the amount of tickets I would like to already have sold. We may have it in the next few days. If we don't, we're going to postpone it and do it a different time. I don't stress about these things no more. I'm not in a space of fear-based motivation. And even with what you just said, for somebody to create a product, SASHA Flower Skincare, right? Just like we sold out a couple retreats with one flyer in less than a week, actually. I said a week and a half before. It was less than a week. But for somebody to create a product, SASHA Flower Skincare that she did last year, correct? At this point, like early last year?
Yeah, early last year.
She did 6 figures in a couple of months, correct? Mm-hmm. Anybody that has something that's that successful, they're going to have their mind tell them, this is it. This is what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. This is your business, and figure out a way to make this work.
And don't stop.
She got to the point where it was like, you know what? I don't feel like doing this right now. And that was coupled with the clientele starting to dwindle a bit. Not as many people was purchasing as did in that first 2 months, even though everybody loves the product. And still people were kind of hounding her like, yo, when you going to put it back up? Mm-hmm. I would even ask her, yo, you want me to post SASHA Flowers in my story? She would say, not right now. It's been almost a year and change removed from that point. And she's just now getting back to the point where she feels creative and inspired by getting back to SASHA Flower Skincare. Had she not honored what she needed to, let's say she kept going and she was able to squeeze blood out of a penny to a certain degree and have a certain level of impetus, she wouldn't have downloaded the lessons you have just in life to now when you come back to SASHA Flowers, you are able to bring back that new information that came from the stillness, that came from you not being afraid of letting go of something that made you 6 figures in a couple months. And had you not did that, you wouldn't have been able to venture into retreat life.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have been able to do the work necessary to build a house that is also a mode of us having income because it doubles as our event space. All these other tributaries of creation would have never had the time to be able to sprout and grow into what they have been. So now when you come back to SASHA Flowers, you got 4 or 5 other lanes that didn't exist had you forced your way into SASHA Flowers being established this whole time.
Right. And that's where that term spiritual integrity is very important, because I could have easily continued. I could have easily kept pushing out products. I mean, it was working. People were buying them. People love the products. But one thing that I always say is, if I am not spiritually or emotionally my best or feel in alignment, I'm not making products. Right. That means that some people's order is going to be late, because I don't really subscribe to the term small business, but my business is just me. There's nobody here helping me. And so when the products are created, I'm the one that's creating those products, which means that my energy is going into those products. So if I'm going through my own healing journey and there's something that's like, Candace, I need you to stop what you're doing and focus on feeling these emotions, I'm not creating products. Because when you do that, when you're creating from a space of sadness or depression or confusion or just being emotionally chaotic, all of that energy goes into the product, and then the person receives the product and they're putting anxiety on their face and they don't even know it, because that's the spirit and the energy that it was created in. So I have to take the initiative to implement my spiritual integrity to protect people who are buying my products, so they know that when they put this product on, it was made from a place of love. It was made from a place of spiritual integrity and emotional alignment. And so that means I also may have to apologize to a few people and acknowledge I had to protect the energy that you received this product in. So it may be 2 days late.
Absolutely.
Right. And so that is not a successful business model based on societal norms. And that is a business model that also typically will have people lose clients. And so you're going to have to be so secure in the ability to surrender when your soul is asking you to surrender, even if that looks like you're going to lose business, you're going to lose money, you're going to lose clients. All of that matters. And then that helps you build spiritual stamina.
Right.
So when situations happen to where, like the blindfolded speed meeting that we have coming up, if it doesn't get the amount of people we like to sign up, or if it does, but when you have spiritual stamina because you have practiced surrender, spiritual surrender so often, when situations happen that don't feel the best to you, you don't get emotionally overwhelmed by this because you've surrendered to the depths of your being. So something like this is not enough to take you emotionally off kilter, but that happens with practice. You have to practice spiritual integrity. You have to practice having spiritual stamina. You have to practice surrendering, and not just surrendering, but submission. It's one thing to surrender because now you have to surrender to like the anxiety, the fear, surrendering to no longer having control, surrendering to letting go of expectations and outcomes. But submission means getting on your knees and bowing to the soul, bowing to God, and really admitting and saying, whatever you need me to do in this moment, I am willing to do, I want to do, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how painful it is, I submit to whatever your guidance is in the moment. And that's a step past surrender.
And then that becomes success itself. Because case in point, I always say a lot of times, sometimes you got to be Noah. Sometimes you got to build an ark when there ain't no rain. And the first time I did an extremely successful series of events that we call Peace in the Park that I've been doing in Jersey for 3 years at this point. The first one we did, I got the download to do it coming out of meditation. This is the 3rd week of quarantine. Like when it first hit, when everybody's scared to go outside, and I get in the shower after meditation, I'm washing up and this download is coming. My first meditation sessions was called Peace in the Park, but it was just me. And I'm getting this download of this big event with not just me, but other spiritual practitioners and something for people to connect. It's the 3rd week of quarantine. I'm literally seeing people who are trying to have events go to jail where I live at. I kept getting a download, had the meeting, and we did it. And the first one we did, 100 people came out. The fifth week of quarantine, we made a bunch of money and continue to do it ever since. So you have these moments where you realize, as long as I'm doing what my spirit is compelling me to do, whether I get 100 people to show up, the first Peace in the Park, going on to have contracts with the city of Newark, who made it even bigger, having thousands of people to show up, retreats, spaces getting filled every year. Regardless of any of that, the success is in actually doing it. And then that kind of takes the worry out of it. Like you have an idea coming and you want to execute, and you're worried the whole time based on this perception of what success is going to be deemed as. If I'm going to pack out this event, that doesn't exist in my space no more. So whether I have a beautiful thousands of people event, or we can't sell enough tickets to get an event going, it's the same level of success because I did what my spirit told me to do. And I've also found, with that being the case, there have been times I was compelled to do an event. I do my due diligence. Mind you, I've been out here running around Houston, putting up flyers, not just relying on social media, exhausting possibility and letting go. But there have been times where back in Jersey, I would be compelled to do an event. And I'm doing my due diligence, spreading the word and all this different stuff. And it comes down to the fact we can't do this event. We ain't selling enough. Some of those people I connected with in handing out flyers and having conversations with people I've never met in my community turned into resources in abundance in completely different ways outside of, well, I gave this flyer to you for you to come to my event. They brought thousands of dollars to me in a completely different way I couldn't have anticipated based on, I just want you to come to my event. So sometimes these ideas of what success really is is nearsightedness, is short-sightedness, and God, your God level self, has the whole scope of how to play chess on a universal level, and all you see is I need to get 100 people to this event.
Right.
And Source is like, no, I need you to do this just so you could talk to 2 people that's going to give you abundance in a completely different way that you can't see right now. When you go to that level of trust, you always know there may be periods of what is perceived as lack. There may be periods of what's perceived as abundance, but you're always going to have what you need when you need it.
And this is the part of the spiritual and the conscious and the Instagram community where they're not practicing these tactics, because these tactics require you to have a deeper relationship with God, a deeper relationship with your soul, spirit, and intuition. And so when people don't have those relationships in alignment, they rely on systems. Right. They rely on business marketing. They rely on strategies. And it is a fearful, I guess, train that is taking them into those spaces, because they can attempt to manipulate and control, but relying on your spirit, God, intuition, it's just too up in the air.
Right.
And people want something that is concrete, that they can see, that they can put their eyes on, and they can change and manipulate if it doesn't work out. And so you have people, especially I'm going to speak about in the spiritual community, that are guiding people and speaking to people and teaching people and leading people that are not ordained to teach, guide, or lead people nowhere. Right. And so what they figured out is how to make a business strategy work. They figured out how to get people in the door. They figured out the aesthetic, what makes people think that I look like I know what I'm talking about. What do I need to say to where people think I know what I'm talking about? They've mastered the skill of regurgitated information. They've mastered the skill of beautiful memory, and they've mastered the skill of gift for gab. And don't none of them actually implement the things that they teach. And the reason why spiritual integrity is so important is because you have people who are coming to you that are like, I trust that you can help guide me through this process. And then you're like, yeah, give me your money. I can help guide you through this process. And the person doesn't realize God asked you to sit down. God didn't even ask you to create this event. God didn't ask you to create this course. Your spirit and your soul begged you not to create this course. And all of the advice that you're attempting to give to other people, your spirit, your soul, and God begged you to take your own advice. Sit down for 5 months and just soak in what your spirit and your soul was guiding you to do. And so now you give another person advice that was only meant for you, and you rob yourself of your opportunity to heal, grow, and evolve, because you just gave away wisdom that was not meant for the person to buy. It was not meant for them to purchase it. It was meant for you to sit down in solitude and actually soak that in. And I've realized in these communities, a lot of people are being taken advantage of because people rely on the business and the systems and the marketing strategies, and they have absolutely no connection with their spirit and their intuition, and they're guiding people in ways that are not conducive to their healing process.
And with the current monetization of spirituality, which is extremely rampant, when you may ask, all right, so what does the spiritual integrity look like? What she just said about, if I'm not in the right energy, I'm not sending you this product right now, I'm not going to promote. Even down to the fact that if you would have continued with SASHA Flowers, what you just discovered about what the energy of SASHA Flowers skincare was asking of you, we wouldn't have been able to have the moment upstairs. Like you started to like rebrand with your business partner a few months ago, and you paid for your sessions and all of that, and y'all working on stuff. And then again, you got to a point where it's like, all right, I don't feel compelled to do this.
And she's waiting for the last payment. She's also waiting like, hey, you kind of just stopped in the middle. And like what you're about to say is, my spirit told me it's not time yet. Rest.
Right. And in that, maybe.
And she probably mad. Yeah. Low key, I ain't even gonna front. Kristen, I'm sorry, girl, but my spirit did. And this is the thing. When your spirit tells you to stop and rest, it may cause dysfunction. And you're still going to have to surrender in that process. You got to
be okay with what that may look like. So with that process, it's maybe 3-4 months removed from my wife telling me like, I still don't feel it. Like we got this going again, and I kind of hit a wall again. So she's been in a beautiful space of we both have. We've been in a beautiful space of creativity after coming out of a death December where it wasn't no clients booking. We ain't feel compelled to do nothing. We wasn't posting like that. We was just living our life, enjoying family and the holidays. But I was able to indicate to her that I go through this process almost every year as an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur a little bit longer than her. So every end of the year, just like you talk about in your full moon ceremonies, everything dies. I've gotten comfortable with the fact that there's a quote unquote lull during the end of the year. And then like clockwork, everything blows up again around January, February area. And that continues pretty much for the whole year until like December again. So being that we honored that process, we didn't get worried or fearful about a lot of money not coming in. We were able to just kind of glide into this new space of expansion and podcasts being launched. And we doing all these things and it's lit again. Now the creativity is back, and now she's like, you know what? I feel compelled to work on SASHA Flower skincare again. So she's up there in the bed a couple days ago, and she got all these papers. Women, y'all know how y'all get, right? Y'all gotta like visually be in it and see it. So she got papers all over the bed. I don't even know what she's doing. It's like, all right, she in her bag right now. I'm doing my thing, cleaning up the house. You know what I mean? Getting myself prepared. And she's like, when you get a second, I want to brainstorm some things with you. I'm like, all right, no worries. So at a certain point, she's like, all right, you ready? So I come upstairs. She includes me in what she's doing. She needs new names for the products that she's already had. And she's asking me, what do I think? And it's beautiful because the feminine energy has a propensity to be in that expansiveness. This is why sometimes it's so hard for women to make decisions, what they want to eat, what I want to name my products, or whatever it may be. Men, a lot of times, especially men who have honed in, trained their attention, and coupled the masculine energy with the feminine principle, I have an ability to jump into my creativity in a way that's very fine-tuned. So when she gives me the challenge, I close my eyes, I'm laying right next to her, and I'm literally on some Doctor Strange, going into different compartments of my mind to pull back what she's asking me for. And within 30 minutes, what she has spent 5 hours on trying to come up with these names, in 30 minutes, we was able to collaborate. She already got her whole new branding, all the different names, the theme for her product, and now she knows what she's going to do from this point. That can't happen, and she can't come back and call, what is it, Kristen, she's not going to be able to have that conversation with Kristen like, all right, I'm ready whenever you call her this week, without being patient, without allowing me to be included in the process, being humble enough to say, I think I need some help with this, having that spiritual integrity all the way across the board. And now when SASHA Flowers get relaunched, it's not just from a component of what she wants the product to be. That product is an energy. Mm-hmm. That energy has been asking her this whole time, I want to be presented like this. The spiritual integrity allowed both of those to meet in the middle. And that's something I say as a man. I had a situation a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I won't say who it was. I was with loved ones. And it was a couple. The woman is working extremely hard. She has a job where she has to be in front of a computer a lot, 12, 13 hours a day. He has a job where he has to be gone 12, 13 hours a day, sometimes whole days at a time. They got to work hard. They do well for themselves. They take care of themselves, but they work hard. So it was a moment where he was home and she was just tapped out. She was just expressing like, yo, I think I may need to, just take a few hours and maybe take tomorrow off. And I felt her exhaustion. In the very next breath, he was just kind of looking at her. He was like, but you know what you got to do. You know what we got to get done. We got bills and stuff. So forget how you feel right now. You got to push through just like I be pushing through. And in that moment, I didn't say anything. Of course, that's not my place to say, but I felt like kind of a tinge in my own heart. And I had a reflection of how maybe the old docs would have approached that situation. He would have said the same thing that man said. Out of fear of, well, if you don't do this today, then I got to work harder. Or we may not have what we need at the end of the month. But now understanding how abundance flows, that expansion, contraction, the best thing a man can do, the highest level of provision, is make sure that your wife continues, your partner continues to come back to those states of rest where these downloads come. And I've been in that exact same situation where sometimes she don't got it in her, or I may not have it in me to carry something out. And when I see her energy is depleted, how you feel? I can do it. No, how you feel? I don't really feel like we're not doing it.
We're not doing it.
It don't matter what abundance can possibly come from it, how anxious my mind may be about getting this product out. We are not doing it. And a lot of times men are so in go mode, feeling like we are the providers and we got to maintain status quo in our households, that we bypass the necessity of making sure our household at large, but especially that feminine principle that has all that energy of creativity, making sure she plugs into the outlet, into the battery, into the charging port of rest, regardless of what it's going to do to our finances right now. It's going to come around the back end in a way that I can't anticipate right now, as long as I tell my partner in that moment, take a few hours off. If you can't do it tomorrow, call out. I don't care. It will be figured out.
Right. And it goes towards, like we said in one of our first episodes, our podcast. We were supposed to release our podcast Christmas Day, but that was in December. That was in our month of rest. And then it was like, okay, well, maybe we'll do it New Year's Eve. It was still in our time of rest. And then when we did, and in those moments, my husband be like, we're releasing today. And I'm like, he's like, nope. Then we good. It's not the time yet. Right. He asks again on the next date, because I would always say, okay, let's do it next week. And then the next date would come and he would say, are we releasing today? And I'm like, we can. He's like, nope, it's not it. And so when it was finally time, now everything has flourished around our podcast. Everything that we touch is going viral. Everything that we say is bringing in clients. Everything that we promote is bringing in potential people for retreats and reaching 1 million views, reaching 900,000 views, 400,000 views on multiple platforms at a time. Yeah. So all of that doesn't happen without the ability to rest, without the ability to really feel into, is my spirit actually telling me it's time? And because we took off so much time from working and really gave ourselves permission to rest, we're in the house, we don't have to pay for anything. Right. We really have designed the life that we used to pray for. Right. Healing is our life. Growing intentionally, having an intentional relationship with God is our life, to where we don't have to wake up and worry or think about how to struggle. That's what we prayed for and asked for and healed for. Right. And so when we took so much time, now we're kind of in our phase of reward, to where the energy is so prominent. Everything that we do is creation. Exactly. Everything that we're doing is like showing, okay, good, you took a break December 1st. Now I'm going to show you why that was necessary. So everything that we're putting our energy, and we have the energy. When I was saying I don't have the desire, I wasn't creating anything. And I'm great at putting things together. I'm great at making people feel something. I'm great with words, but I couldn't even get my thoughts together. But now I can't even sleep because so many creative ideas are just rushing to the surface. Right. And I know that this is the moment that God is like, okay, it's time to create. Right. And then I'm also going to be okay when that starts to dwindle and God says, okay, it's time for you to rest again. Right. And you also receive confirmations, the numerology. Absolutely. When you are attentive enough and you have that love language with source is always communicating to you. God, universe, however you perceive that, is always sending data to you. It may not be overt. Sometimes it's going to be more covert. So when you understand numerology, the spirit animals you may see from time to time, synchronicities in your life are also saying, yes, I know you felt the compulsion to do this. We confirm it. Yes, go in that direction. Yep. So I've been seeing, and we have been seeing 333 for the past few weeks, 414 for her the past few days. And when you do your due diligence, if you guys are starting to see some of your own numerology, when you see it, just Google, all right, spiritual significance of ... When we look these things up, they're always in alignment with what we already feel compelled to be doing in the direction we compelled to be going in. And everything about 333, 414 is about creativity. Yep. Do it now. Start the business now. Write the book now, whatever it may be. Yep. So God gonna let you know, but you don't get that access to that subtle layer of information without sitting your butt down, without being still. And I can almost maybe hear some of the people's thoughts of where they're saying, well, y'all ain't got no bills.
how do we get to the point of not having much bills? Because we still got bills.
Right, for sure.
But how do we get to the point of being in this situation? Those moments where we say, I don't care what the world is telling me, I'm going to prioritize my healing. I'm going to spend the money I need to go on these trips like she did for 4 years for my healing. I'm going to prioritize me being in the forest for 8 hours a day, making sure I balanced out my energy. These sacrifices that we made then translates into us having the propensity to have access to these type of rewards from the deeper aspects of ourselves. So you may say, well, y'all ain't got to pay. It's a reason we got to this point. And all those moments that you're distracting yourself and spending your bread on the clubs and those low level hanging fruits of pleasure, blocking yourself from those high top shelf aspects of what your soul wants. These are the moments that's keeping you from whatever your effortless abundance is supposed to look like for you. I tell my clients when I do counseling, after we have a session, and like, yo, this was beautiful, this is dope, this is completely different from the therapy, the traditional therapy I go to. I want to continue this process. Can I meet with you next week? No. I'm going to give you some homework. You're going to have at least 2 weeks before we can meet again, preferably a month or more. I literally tell my clients, I don't want to see you for a while. Absolutely. If I never got to see you again, if you can get whatever you need out of this conversation and the homework and techniques I'm about to send you, that is the best case scenario for me. I could easily say, yes, we got to meet every week. They almost be surprised when I tell them, I don't want to see you for at least 2 weeks. These are the aspects of spiritual integrity that you start to become aware of in your healing journey. And then when you get to a point where your magnetism is bright enough, where you have souls in your, again, it's a lot of practitioners out here. Y'all got people's soul trajectory in your hand. It got to go to a deeper level of integrity. And if you are somebody that's investigating who you should work with, one of the first questions I would ask somebody, how much time do you spend a day in silence? How many times a day do you go away from your mind? We could do all the yoga till we blue in the face. We could do all the burning of the stage and the retreats and all this external stuff, and it's still necessary. It's still beautiful. But your codes, your cheat codes, your life hacks are going to be in the opposite direction of the mind. And if you got a spiritual practitioner that is not doing that, that's not spiritual integrity in the way that we're talking about.
Absolutely. And this is why on my Instagram, I put up my healing story, and it's in my highlights on Instagram, because it gives people the ability to see who I was in the beginning, what I went through, how I healed from it, and where I am today. And this is not to boast. It is to show people that there are levels to this. There is a process to healing, and it don't look good and it don't always feel good. So when people are investing in me to help them and guide them through their healing process, they can trust because they can see the fact that I did my work and I'm still doing my work. And I also have proof to show people I don't even look like the same person 10 years ago. Exactly. And so when you are someone who is looking for a spiritual practitioner or someone to help you or guide you in your process, if you know, like I know, you better do your due diligence. You better research these people because you are going to people who do not practice what they preach. And you receive all of the karma from that, from being so careless with your own spirit. You putting your own soul in somebody's hands, don't even wash their hands. And that is not okay. And so it's nothing wrong with you going to a spiritual practitioner and be like, hold up. Before I give you my money to go on your retreat, before I give you my money to purchase your course, tell me about your healing process. How do you respond in these situations? How many people have you treated badly within the past year? How do you respond in situations that are not reflective of how you're telling me to respond in situations? This matters because when a person is giving you advice, they're also giving you all of their unhealed trauma, the energy that is attached to that advice. So when people even say things like, pay attention to the message and not the messenger, we're not doing it because the messenger carries the energy in the message. And so you need to be mindful of the messenger and the message and the energy that is being emitted from both. And you have to do your due diligence in making sure that you're protecting yourself, that you're protecting your spirit and you're protecting your soul. And people will also say, I'm always protected. Yes, you are. And you also get to choose if you want to learn your lessons from a place of love and ease, or if you want to learn your lessons from a place of pain and difficulty and chaos. And many people are protected in those aspects, but it may not always be necessary for you to go down the difficult road just because you did not do your due diligence and protect yourself. Right? So you're going to learn your lessons, but you're going to struggle in that process. Or you can be so in tune with yourself and do the work to be so in tune with yourself that you don't have to choose to learn lessons from a difficult place. And just to touch on what you said before I hand it back over to you, when people are saying, well, y'all don't have a whole lot of bills. Like y'all can wake up and kind of just rest. Yes. But you also don't see the many years that I was driving to work crying because I hated my job. The many years I'm a police officer making great money, but I'm being asked to heal sexual trauma and somebody asking to be arrested. Somebody, a supervisor is telling me to arrest this person. So I have to cut off all of my emotions just to do something that I don't really even care to do. Right. So there's many years I had to still be 1000% diligent in my healing process and intentional in my healing process, even when my life did not reflect what I wanted it to reflect. When I had to go to jobs that I did not want to go to, when I had to be in situations I did not want to be in, I still had to come home and dedicate all of that time to my personal self, and also giving myself permission to take off work some days because I need the full day to cry. I need the full day to honor myself. I need time to not focus on what anybody else has going on and time to just focus on myself. And so if you are someone who is in the process and you want to heal, grow, evolve, and be intentional about your process, we're not focused on the end goal. No more focusing on expectations to outcomes. I knew that my goal or that my desire was for healing to be my life. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I wanted to be able to grow at my own pace without being interrupted and have to go to work and then start back crying again when I got home. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know that that was going to equate to entrepreneurship. I just knew that my intention was, and my passion was, to intentionally heal, grow, and evolve. And I wanted an abundance of time to do that. And so I had to find gratitude in my life then for that to even propel me to the life that I have now. So if you are someone who wants those things for you to have time to heal, grow, and evolve, you still have to have gratitude and patience for the process of your life that you're in now. And you prove that point to yourself, God, your spirit, and your intuition. When you go to work, you find gratitude for being where you are, and then you come back home and you still dedicate your life to your healing, your growing, and your evolving.
And it's like the progressive, I guess, gradual cracking open of the door of the phase of your life that your soul is begging to kind of get to. The moment when I realized it was time for me to leave my job and stop working for anybody else. And I knew before I took that 5th job, matter of fact, the 6th job, I didn't get fired from. I left on my own terms. But I knew when I took that job, that was going to be the last job I worked for anybody else. It was 3 years before I got to the point where I was able to springboard away from that. But that was not a desperation. That was not a frustration. That wasn't because I was tired or I wasn't appreciating the abundance I had in those $17 an hour I was making as a chef. That was due to all the moments where, regardless of how tired I was when I got off work, I still went to the lake. I still went to the forest and still had my relationship with God. That cracking open of the door was all those moments where I did my best to make the best possible decision on what I was going to put into my body. That cracking open of the door was being non-self-absorbed, and when somebody else needed my help in a way I could give it, regardless if it made me money or not, I will offer myself in those ways. All of these and the gratitude piece. There would be times at my last job that I ended up leaving. That was a beautiful job. It was probably the most, I guess, menial labor I did. Well, I did some crazy stuff, FedEx, all this type of stuff. But, people don't look at a chef as, unless you're a high level chef, they don't look at the chef as like a doctor or something like that. I had been an electrical engineer, held some high positions in different jobs. This was the most peaceful job I had ever worked at. Mind you, I'm doing 14-hour days, cooking all day. Everybody else, all my other employees, I loved them. We was cool. I ain't have nobody barking down my back trying to get me out of there. So it was a peaceful environment for me. Everybody else would complain all day about what they was doing, about having to be at work, when I'm like, this is the stage of abundance I'm supposed to be at, and I wasn't looking forward. So that gratitude greatly cracked open the door for me to get to this side of things. And now that I'm on this side that certain versions of me never thought I would get to, being able to go through that portal of knowing it's time to leave the job, walking that plank of patience and not understanding how this is going to work from here. I didn't know how it was going to continue to flow, if I was going to be able to sustain myself. Same thing with her. I remember she was at the teaching job, and I was like, you know what? I'm at a point where I feel like I don't want to do this anymore. We had many conversations. Yeah. And some people may have looked at my advice as reckless or irresponsible by telling her, if your heart is telling you to leave, I know that's a dependable paycheck. It's time to go, right? So us honoring all these stages before we got to the point where we could fully jump off the plank, right, not know where it's going to take us or where we're going to land, but God, the wind of spirituality kind of carried us to where we needed to go. We're not able to get there without all of these different aspects of ourselves being locked into. So now when we're on this side of things and people may look at us as lucky or fortunate. Nah, we died. I say this all the time. We died many times to live this well. And being on this side of things, I don't even perceive this phase of my life as better than then anymore. That was just as important, just as beautiful. It was painful, but it was just as much God as this phase of my life is. So now there's no longer a comparison, even previous versions of myself to this version of myself, or this to what I'm going to be in the next 5 years. All there is what's in the moment and what's in front of me. And before I hand it back over to you, I want to ask you a question, and I'll speak on this briefly, I guess. If you have any advice for people to kind of open up to the clarity they need to know kind of which way to go, to be guided to these next phases of their life where they can get to a point eventually where they don't have to spend their time working for somebody else's dream and being at a job they hate. What advice would you give them? And my advice, beyond just, again, that gratitude piece is important. Every time you catch yourself at that cubicle or in front of that computer and you're like, bro, I can't wait till I get off work. I can't wait till I leave this job. Can you challenge yourself to still be in gratitude in those moments and understand, like I said, $17 an hour wasn't much. It was contributing to what I needed to put food in my son's mouth, to pay my rent, to do whatever it is I needed to do. So that gratitude piece is extremely important. And then, like you said, that detachment from result is extremely important. So what advice would you give somebody on what they could focus on and get into these next phases of their abundance?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually saw a post on Instagram not too long ago that said that telling people to be grateful for their situation when it's a situation they don't want to be in is dismissive. And I was like, because the reason why, in my opinion, it's not dismissive is because gratitude is an energy. It's a frequency. And so when you have the frequency of disdain, the frequency of not wanting to be in a certain place, it's a low vibrational frequency. And so what happens? You continue to attract more of that. When gratitude is your frequency, because it is such a high vibrational and powerful frequency, you start to attract other opportunities that have that match that same frequency. So you don't get what you want by being the opposite of the frequency that you're trying to attract. Right. You cultivate that frequency within yourself, and other things that are on that same high vibrational frequency, they easily find you. So you have to start practicing that gratitude and finding things to be grateful for. And that's one of the things that I did. I hating my job. Ain't nothing fun about going to work and arresting people every single day. There's nothing fun about having to tell people what to do and what not to do. And you put in situations to where your life is being in danger. You can't wear your uniform in your neighborhood. And it was just a lot of fear around my job. And I didn't like it. And so the only thing that I could do to counteract all of those energies, every day before I left work, I put a journal in front of my door. Before I step out of my door, I write all of the things that I expect to experience throughout my day. I write what I'm grateful for. And so what I expect to experience, I expect for something so beautiful to happen today that I laugh so hard that I cry. I expect to experience a moment that is so beautiful that I connect with a person and we feel like we have known each other for lifetimes. And I'm grateful for the fact that I have the capacity to go to a job that is able to fund a lifestyle that I feel like I deserve. Those are the things that I write every day before I even leave out of the house. And you'll see when you start to go and you write these things and you go about your day, that they actually start to happen because you start to emit the frequency of what you're actually asking for. And then when you see, oh snap, I just laughed so hard that I cried. It's like, hold up, this is working. And it makes you so excited to do more of that. And you just naturally raise the frequency within your body. So gratitude is very important. And the tactic that I did, I think, can really help other people.
And when you are stressed out, worried, or in disdain about a person, place, or thing that's in your life, that energy is also very constrictive. Again, it brings you back to that 1 or 2 bits out of that 11 million. So laughter was going to be one of mine. And I just had a few people, it's a full moon right now. People reach out to us all the time asking for advice or help walking through certain situations. And I had 2 people reach out to me, one of which said they almost committed suicide last night. The other one had a situation where they crashed their car and they were just in a rough space. So I told each of them at a certain point, find at least one way to laugh today. I don't care if you got to turn on a Mike Epps movie, watch Money Talks.
Shout out to Mike Epps.
Right? If you got to do something funny, do a weird dance. One of the things that really helped me was the mantra that some of y'all have seen me promote online. Going to a public place and screaming out as loud as I can, I love my life. This is something I've been doing for a long time. My son does it. Everybody that's really in my life knows at a certain point I've had them do it. And I did this in some of the roughest financial spaces of my life. And every time I did it, no matter what that day felt like or looked like to me, I opened up that constrictiveness of the stress by having that moment of, I love my life as loud as I can, looking around, not caring about what people think of me. That was some of the program of that OPP, other people's perceptions, that I started to break by doing this. And I would recognize every time I did it, my vibration expanded. That constrictiveness opened up. And I look around and people is smiling and laughing, and then other people is screaming it back and saying, yeah, that's the way we should be. And I will be able to create community wherever I was at just by having this moment of allowing my inner child to surface, by having that laughter. So if you having a rough day, you're having a rough month, rough life, today, if you can, find something you can do to cause you to laugh, to cause you to have at least a moment of fun. It don't mean that fun is going to figure out the issue or the challenge for you. It just means you're opening back up that constrictive energy that got you seeing this pinpoint aspect of information. And once you open up, now the universe is like, all right, there's space. We can send energy through this way. And these moments of laughter, fun, and inner child play is what allows us to do this. Another quick thing too, in some of the moments where I felt most constricted financially, when I got used to walking that plank of patience and jumping off, not knowing what was going to happen, just to reverse the stream of where my mind would go, I would buy something for myself. I would spend some type of money when my mom was telling me there is lack here, there is no surplus, there is no abundance. I would just buy something. And when I had no plans, it wasn't in the budget, I would just go buy something, and that would kind of reverse the stream of energy and concept of where I was in my life. It would reaffirm and revalidate to my spirit that we always abundant, regardless of what's in my bank account. So much so that I trust whatever's coming on the back end of this financial squeeze, I'm gonna buy something right now because I know I'm always gonna be taken care of. That's a few things that have worked for me as well.
Yeah, and I think I thought about 2 others. It's crazy because you do have the mantra of I love my life, and my mantra was my life is beautiful.
Right.
And so I would add that on all of my pictures, and because the way that you reprogram the subconscious mind, and remember how the subconscious works. The subconscious is 95% of who you are, what you think, how you respond, how you feel, how you react is 95% of who you are. Only 5% of how you think, feel, what you do, what you say is a conscious choice. So 95% of what you feel is an automatic program,
Right.
which means that you have to do things like what my husband just said to interrupt that program.
Right.
I love my life interrupts the program
Exactly.
of I can't stand my life, or this is horrible, or I hate this job. That thought process is what's running on the subconscious program 95% of the time. And so how you break that program, one of the things is repetition. So I would write on my pictures, I'd write in my journal, I'd write on a book, whatever is nearby. My life is beautiful. And it was like a way to remember that my life is beautiful, but I will also search for ways to remind myself that my life is beautiful, which look like finding God in everything.
Right.
So I had a friend and we would call it nature shots. And so I would get my iPhone, and whatever was in nature, whether it was how the trees were swaying, there was a time where I randomly ran across a whole bunch of beavers, watching certain type of flowers, or the ocean, or water, whatever the case is, but things out in nature, because nature has the resonance of God. It has the energy and the frequency of God, and all of the colors are color therapy. All of the smells are what is necessary for the body to be in nature and heal. Grounding the feet in the ground is also what the body needs to heal, grow, and evolve. So when you have the capacity to find God out in nature, and all of these colors and the smells and the animals and the birds, and you're hearing the birds chirping, all of that matters. And then also create your own mantra. Record these videos to go back and watch, because they are beautiful and God is in these spaces. And so I would just record a beautiful video, like the sun just came out through the clouds. Sometimes you can see the sun rays go through the clouds. And then I just would post that on my Instagram and attach my life is beautiful. As small as that seems, it's interrupting the subconscious program, and it's reminding it based on repetition. Hey, my life is beautiful.
Right. And when you do that, you start to become aware of the ways your life is beautiful. It goes beyond just me trying to say it to push through a moment, and you start to pick up on all those little things that you've been missing and ignoring. I call them the rose petals on the way to the bedroom of being, of God. And God is giving you all these flowers in all these different ways, but you're so focused on this 2 to 5 bits of information out of 11 million, and you can't see the sun rays peeking through the clouds. All you see is the traffic, and I can't wait to get home. You ain't even see how beautiful God just was there. So it also heightens your awareness. And just on an anatomic brain level, habits is a result of electrical firings, right? We call them synapses. So when we do something repetitively, there are like these tendrils in your brain, and it's a little space, and there's all these information in these tendrils. So for the information to hop from one to the next, it needs electricity, and it's almost like a bolt of lightning that takes it from one to the next and then filters through your mind. When you do something over and over, those synapses, your brain is saying, well, this is something that we're going to continue to do. So we don't want to have to fire these synapses every single time. And these synapses actually turn into hardened grooves within your brain. And this is why people talk about that 21 days to break a habit, because it's really just a matter of redirecting the stream of repetition in a different way. So these pockets are those momentary gaps between these hardened grooves that start to loosen it, that start to soften it. So eventually you can create a new program and send those synapses in a different direction.
Perfect. I think this is a beautiful time to transition into the Q&As that we've had. So we've had 2 Q&As. I guess I'll start with the first one that was sent out. They didn't ask to be anonymous. So this is by
El Sabe, EHLYSABE, El Sabe, I guess.
So she says, I'm currently listening to the podcast episode of the podcast, which I feel so honored to have come across at this time. Divine timing as always. I wanted to ask you a question, but held back. I got to the part in the episode where you guys do take questions, and now I'm feeling like there's a chance for me to be received, which is something that I'm working through. Not letting myself feel like a burden unless I know for sure there's space for me. But I wanted both of your input on this. I'm 21 in this reality currently and haven't had a lot of experience with people my age to certain extents. Yes, I've drank, smoked, gone out, the typical things people or society like me feel like you should be doing at this time. I started my committed healing journey a year ago and quickly came to realize that all of these things don't bring me true pleasure. I felt so outcasted, which I'm okay with since I know my path and new habits and are in alignment with bringing me closer to my truest self. Something you mentioned kind of made my ears perk up on how people on Instagram especially are just regurgitating the information but not living it. I too can notice this is circulating back to my question. Have you experienced imposter syndrome and how do you deal with it? Because for me, sometimes I forget to acknowledge the growth I've done with releasing the people-pleasing codependency, not recognizing that in sexual moments, the woman I'm supposed to and always receive just to give many more things I'm learning and unlearning since no one is in my life to tell me. She went on, but her question is, have you experienced imposter syndrome and how do you deal with it?
For me at this point, I feel like the core, the floor, the foundation of imposter syndrome is the egoic thought, the I thought, that I am this body, I am this mind, I am these thoughts. And once you get to a point where you're practicing mindfulness enough and meditation and being silent, you start to realize that all of these thoughts that are attached to that I term in your head, I got to get this done. I'm worried about this. I don't like this. When you really look at it, your idea of yourself as this I thing, I is still just a thought, a passing thought that comes and goes. And when you create enough distance from that thought, you start to realize that I is just a vehicle for how you perceive the natural flow of life, the natural flow of energy, the natural flow of God. So when you remove yourself from that, there's no need for personal imposter syndrome as far as is docs valid enough to be doing these types of things. When I first started to teach, part of the personal imposter syndrome I still had was I didn't know enough. And the yogis that I was studying, I felt like they knew way more than me, and I needed to get all that information before I could feel valuable enough to go to start to teach. I had to push past that, and I got to see through actual experience the information that I had. There were people that didn't have that, so they need that. And now it's to a point where I realized that docs isn't doing any of this. We just had a moment after our school on Sunday. We have a yoga teacher certification program where we teach people how to get certified to teach yoga, meditation, emotional alchemy. We go from 7 to 3 o'clock. Me and her be up from 4 o'clock getting everything prepared. We had a full day of class and activity and doing. And at the end of it, I guess the meditation I guided people in impacted our attendees so much that the last teacher, she asked me to close us out in a brief meditation again. And the meditation, what I said, only took a few minutes, but the energy of the spirit downloaded into the space, into all of our hearts where nobody moved, eyes closed, feeling our energy, feeling the energy of God. Nobody moved for probably a good hour from that point. And when we started, like, I was literally drunk. We was all drunk in the spirit. Some of our new attendees was like, yo, when we came out of it, what was that? Is this what you talking about is available to me via learning this stuff? But at a certain point, the teacher that asked me to guide in that way, she said, she thanked me. I said, nah, that wasn't me. I was used as a conduit in that moment. We are all representation and expressions of God. So you get to the point where you realize I'm not the doer. I'm not the provider. I'm just the vehicle for which God, that's flowing through the same trees, the sun, all these different things, is pretty much making love to it, her, his, self, however you perceive that. And I can't take credit for any of this. So if you're going to go to that level of not taking credit, there's also nothing to think about as far as, am I valuable enough, or do I know enough? Have I done enough to be able to flex in some of these ways? Imposter syndrome for me has completely disappeared.
Yeah. And so I think, let's be clear. Another Instagram go-to word is imposter syndrome. Yeah. It's like Instagram come up with these words, and then people take them and they run with them. So first, we have to also remember when Instagram has a hot topic word, and just because they have a hot topic word doesn't mean that now you have to attach yourself to it. Right. So one thing that I will say about imposter syndrome is typically when people are trying to do something, right, create something, start a business, or be in an area of life that they feel like they may not be deserving to be in. And sometimes this feeling can be a feeling of the soul and a feeling of God saying that I actually didn't even guide you to go into this space. What guided you? Who told you to be in this space? I told you to get still and get silent. Right. And when you know a message is coming from God, there's complete confidence in your moving. There's an urgency in your moving that comes from a natural place. But when you have this quote unquote imposter syndrome, it could be because, like my husband said, you have the I that is ego, which is telling you, oh no, like do this. Everybody else is doing this. Right. This works. Right. And then you have the soul that's pushing you in another direction. Like that's disingenuous, is not authentic to us. And I'm asking you to go this way. Now you're in internal conflict, right, because you are maneuvering through two different identities, spirits, and beings within your own body. And so you have become a fragmented being, and you don't know which one is who. Exactly. You don't know what part of yourself is the real part of yourself. Why don't I have the confidence? Because there's a version of you that is guiding you in a way that is not authentic to your soul. So you have to go back to the drawing board and identify, are you being led by the I thought? Right. Or is God guiding you to the area or the space, the job, the creation that you're supposed to be in? Because if you're having second thoughts like that, it may not be spirit guiding you to that place. It may be ego, the one that wants to be seen, heard, acknowledged, wanted, exalted, separated from others, different from others. And so you're just going to have to go back to the drawing board, get still, get silent, get out in nature, and allow your spirit, create that relationship with your spirit, your intuition, your soul, and God. So where when you are guided, that there's none of this fragmented emotion that's showing up for you.
And if you feel the friction of imposter syndrome, based on everything Candace just said, then the modus operandi at that point is to investigate which I'm is here. The first two letters in imposter syndrome is I'm, I. So which I'm am I supposed to be dealing with? And we've expressed a lot of different ways you can tap into yourself to figure out which I'm is at the forefront, whether it's the egoic one or whether it's programs that you're actually at a point of shedding that is still kind of blipping into your consciousness. Like I said, I was at a point where I was ready to teach. And my imposter syndrome was that last stages of me pushing through. I'm not valuable enough. I'm not worthy enough. You got to investigate if it's the opposite of if I really should not be doing this yet and my ego is influencing me. So you got to figure out which I'm is involved in your imposter syndrome.
Beautiful, baby. And so there's one more by Ashanti. on Instagram, and she says, I'm currently in the Air Force. I enlisted in 2014 and worked pretty hard to become an officer in 2020. However, and she means an officer in the Air Force. However, which is a different rank. However, every day I struggle with the fact that I feel the military has nothing else to offer me and is a hindrance to my spiritual growth. I'm battling myself every day to find strength to follow orders, feel connected enough to my peers and the mission. It's like living in cognitive dissonance and being in a constant state of spiritual warfare. I'm doing well at my job. My bosses admit that, but they keep saying that there's some kind of disconnect and they can tell I'm unhappy. They say that being an officer isn't just doing your job, but also the bureaucracy that comes with it. I tell them that I'm trying my best and that I have done work to have a genuine relationship with the person appointed under that makes them safe to come to me for anything. Outside my job, meteorology, which I love and do enthusiastically, and taking care of my people, I don't have anything else to give. I find myself daydreaming and planning for my future life, and I have decided to create my life in Barbados in 2 to 3 years when my commitment is up, where I want to work for myself as a meteorology consultant and have the balance, space, and stillness I desire. My question is, how do I remain present in my current situation enough to still grow and be the best person I can be despite knowing that my spirit wants to flee? I think we answered that.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that, shout out to Barbados. I'm Bayesian, my father from Barbados.
Yeah,
so.
My client yesterday was from Barbados.
Yeah, Barbados.
That's 3 times. That means we on our way there.
Facts. The only thing I add to that, because we kind of have addressed that in multiple ways, but to just make it like super simple and plain. When you, and this is an analogy I use a lot of times. When you're washing the dishes, just wash the dishes. Right? Don't wash the dishes. Planning for Wednesday, planning for Friday. Investigate with a childlike curiosity is a term I often use. The sensations available to you in just washing the dishes, whether that water is cool or warm. Hopefully you're using warm water. You gotta get the dirt off. But feel that warm water on your skin. Like, look at the shapes that the suds flowing across your hands and on the plate. Like, be completely invested into just washing the dishes when you wash the dishes.
As if God is those dishes.
Because literally the energy of God is in that act, whatever you're doing. That's why we was asked yesterday about, do we pray before sex? Sex is prayer, but everything at this point, we are the living prayers of God, no matter what it is we doing, whether it's mundane, whether it's us in front of a whole bunch of people on stage looking lit. All of it is still the expression of God.
Yeah.
And when you start to really practice that, this is the fundamentals of spirituality people will often overlook. When you train yourself, and it's literally a matter of when you first start, picking your little mind up from running to Wednesday while you're washing the dishes, putting it back on the dishes, and you'll be there for a few seconds and then it's going to run away. And this is this process of over and over working your mind, working your attention into the submission of being established in whatever is in your present moment. That opens up to the energy of presence itself, which is even beyond the aspects of the present moment. When you're able to do that, when you're able to just wash the dishes or be at the job, you said the military to some degree, right? When you at your job at the military, do that to its maximum, only be there. But when it is time for you to have space to plan for Barbados, be in that fully. And when you finish that hour or so of planning and booking whatever you got to book, remove yourself from continuing to fantasize. Okay, when I get to Barbados, remove yourself from it, and the next moment, whatever that is, be completely invested in it. A book I often recommend by Eckhart Tolle, who was integral in the early stages of my journey. I think we both read this book, The Power of Now. And he kind of like details via questions and answers how to really catch yourself when you stray away from your present and how to supplant yourself into the present moment. There's also an audio book you could check out on YouTube if you don't have the time to actually read it. But just start to like really do that internal mental dojo work, that mental weightlifting of picking your little mind up from running away from you, and whatever is in front of you, just have a one-pointed focus in doing that.
Yeah, I know that, the military can be an energetically constrictive space. However, you just have to do your due diligence in not allowing your energy, your spirit, your frequency to shrink. Show up in these spaces the best you can. Show up in these spaces, especially since you know there is a time where your contract is going to be up.
Exactly.
But for now, your job is God. And allow yourself to honor that as God, because it sounds like you almost at the door. And it's like, what's it called when you a senioritis?
Yeah.
When you a senior in high school,
Yep.
it's like, I don't need the rest of these classes. I got all my credits. I'm
Right.
about to leave school early and go to Jack in the Box. And so you like, I'm doing my job. I'm doing a good job. I'm ready to leave up out of here so I can go to Barbados. Barbados doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Until when you're in your planning process, you're in your planning process. But right now, while you're at work, you know the energies that you are kind of going up against, and you just allow yourself to really evolve in your job space and really see it for what it is. But the spiritual warfare, don't even claim that.
Right.
Don't claim it. We understand what the military is. We understand how it makes you feel. You understand that, but you're going to have to find ways to transmute that energy. And when you go into your job, how you show up is how you transmute that energy.
Yeah, we always get, upset about when people cheat on us in some way, shape, or form, but we do it to God all the time. So like I always say, don't cheat on your now with what's next. She over here cracking her back, so I think that's
Yeah, y'all, that's it. We done gave y'all a lot for this episode.
Facts.
So what do we have coming up, baby? Where can they find us? What about the retreats and all of that
so
stuff?
June is almost booked up completely. We still have a few spaces available for June 29th to the 3rd, right? I believe is the dates.
Yeah.
July, we still got a few more spaces for that as well. July 6th to the 10th, Tulum, Mexico. And then we just started to get couples trickling in for October, the couples only retreat. And again, that's open to same-sex couples, heterosexual couples. As long as y'all are together, you can come through. And that will be October 13th to 17th, also in Tulum, Mexico. One-on-one services, meditation classes has resparked and is open to the public again. We just did our first one in a while this past Sunday. So if you want to get into how to be mindful, how to be present, the tools and the techniques, get with me, shoot me a DM. You can sign up for virtual classes every single Sunday that I do at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central.
Did you tell them about our one-on-one sessions?
Yeah, I just mentioned the one-on-ones.
One of the beautiful things about our one-on-one sessions is we have a lot of the same clients. So some people love my approach. Some people love my husband's approach. And then some people is like, I actually want to get both of your approaches. And so we don't do our sessions together, but we do have the masculine and the feminine perspective. So if you are someone that like, I don't really know like which one I want to speak with, just book a session with both of us, because we definitely guide you in different ways that are still effective. And that's the beauty of our retreats as well. You get hands-on experience with seeing the masculine approach to healing and the feminine approach to healing, and why both of those components are necessary, because you have to tap into both your masculine and your feminine to heal. So I just wanted to add that.
And with our last 10 seconds before we get out of here, we started with breath work. Maybe a few podcasts ago. We're not going to do breath work this time, but we did talk a lot about the state of wantlessness. And it's one thing to listen to people give you advice. For this last 10 seconds, wherever you are, unless you're driving, but if you do have to have your eyes open, you can still do this. For this last 10 seconds of this podcast, when I count us down from 3, if you can, close your eyes and experiment with what it feels like to not want anything. For 10 seconds. Allow yourself the freedom to suspend desire for 10 seconds. In 3, 2, 1. All right. And those who participated, either one or two things happened. You were able to effectively do that, even if it's just pockets of seconds, maybe 2 or 3 seconds here, and then the desire came back, and then you had another 2 or 3 seconds of that emptiness of wantlessness. You were either able to experience it, or you were able to recognize how inundated you are by all of the desires that just shot through your mind within that 10 seconds, that's an indicator, that's a check engine light, that's an alarm going off to you that I got to get this under control. And this is what's really wreaking havoc in my life, the constant engine of want, constantly going.
All right. Thank you, baby, for guiding us through that. That was beautiful. We will see y'all on episode 6.
Yep. Remembering me. Appreciate y'all.
Next week, every Monday. And make sure you share this, y'all.
Yeah.
Talk to y'all soon.
Yes.